doing this in a little bit more of a casual environment, but I'm sure we'll loosen up as it goes along.
Feeling very casual. Feeling very casual.
Yeah. We're actually very grounded people. This is, yeah. And it's turned into like a confession all of a sudden, strangely.
Yeah, an interesting first day out of the home office for a while.
So, I guess just to start, so I've known Sally since 2011 was actually when we first connected, which happens to be 10 years ago, which is a little bit terrifying. But just to start, it'd be great to hear about, Sal, how you came to be involved in photography and how your business, The Brown Bill Effect, grew out of that.
Sure. How much time do I have?
As long as you want.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Tom. It's really exciting to be here. I always love talking to students and working and talking on panels with people that are all as passionate as each other. And the three of us certainly bounce off each other and have always had a great passion for what we do and to share our knowledge. And I think that's really important. I started life out as a commercial photographer and studied photography at RMIT. I learned a little bit about photography there, and when I started assisting in the industry fairly soon after I graduated, I learned a little bit more about photography and a lot about life. And it was with a mentor that I had who has recently passed away, a guy called Rick Wallace, who taught me a lot about the business of photography. He taught me about it's so much more than just, in fact, taking pictures was the easy part. You know, how to make money out of photography was what he taught me. He taught me about the network, and he taught me about to surround yourself with people at all stages of your career that are going to help you, be it people with studios or stylists or makeup artists or whatever it might be. So that was a huge learning curve for me. He was also instrumental in suggesting that I go and travel for a little while and see the world and again experience life. And so we decided that I'd go for 6 months, and I came home 6 years later, and he was at the airport with my mum and dad. And in that 6 years, whilst I had trained as a photographer, I knew that there was just so much more to what I could offer. I didn't really know it then, but I'm a huge people person and I love making things happen. So I worked in film and television for a lot of that time. I also worked in the West End Theatre with a theatre producer putting on a play, and I was also a door bitch in a nightclub. Now that's a really important part because you've got to be on your toes. You've got to really understand human nature, and I loved it. And then I spent a lot of time based either in London or Bristol, and then travelling the world. Came back to Australia. I actually came back with a plumber called Kevin, because that's what you did. And we ended up in Broome polishing pearls, and I started photographing again. But I sort of had this moment where I thought, God, there's so much more to me than just taking photographs. And when I came back to Melbourne, I rang up one of my old lecturers, and he suggested that I start co-teaching with him. And that was a real turning point for me, because what my role with him was to go into the industry and get briefs to come back into the university to give to the students to work on. And they were advertising students and they were photography students. So that was a really interesting time. And all the way back then, so we're talking in the late 90s, it was about creating a network. So my entire career is about being, not just about learning new things, but it's been about creating a network and finding people to work with me, and I'm really good at getting people to do things as well. And that's a real skill that I found that I had. And so I started teaching, and I also became an agent for commercial photographers. So back then there wasn't very many agents in the country. There's not these days either, but it was an interesting time, and my role was to take photographers' work out and get them work through design studios, advertising agencies, and everywhere in between. So my network built, and it just grew and grew and grew. And I learnt a lot. I learnt a lot from those people about what they wanted to see in photography, and I was able to pass that on to photographers. And for a period of time, a few years, I also worked with illustrators, graphic designers and creative directors, and what was coming in was multimedia artists. So I became an agent for them as well, finding all of those people jobs and working on both sides of the coin. So employing photographers, but also trying to get them employed. And it gave me a really well-rounded look at the commercial world of how photography works. And I'll never forget, one of the creative directors at an agency that had a huge car account rang me one day and said, "Why is it that I only see car photographers?" And I said, because you've got the biggest car account in the country. And she said, yeah, but I know the car photographers that I want to work with. I'm interested in seeing landscape photographers and portrait photographers and people that I might be able to use my cars with.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like a moment where I thought, right, what are we doing with portfolios? So way back in about 2002, a photographer came to see me and he had really lovely work, but it was displayed appallingly. There's no other word for it. It had masking tape on it and a squashed moth and everything in between. And so he said, could you help me pull it together? So I did, and I I designed a portfolio for him. So that was the first folio I did. And moving forward, because I can keep going for hours and I have to just edit this. Moving forward in 2011, when I first met Tom, and in fact we worked together where I helped you edit some images for your first exhibition down in St Kilda, and that was an extraordinary time. So I'd moved from working with a commercial photographer, putting commercial folios together, to working with exhibitions, and Tom had a really good idea and all of these images, but we really needed to just refine not only what you were showing, but what rooms they were going to go in and how it was going to be laid out. And yeah, that's where I get my creative on. So that was really exciting. So in 2011, I started the Brown Bill Effect. And that's been running since then. So these days what I do is I still work with photographers at all stages of their career, whether they're current students, recently graduated, or 20 years out. I help them to make sense of their business. I help them strategise a plan of action. I help them select images for portfolios, websites, and also for exhibition, and lay them out. And if need be, I connect them with writers and web designers and whatever needs to happen. I also help people find full-time jobs in the advertising, design and marketing sector, and have a very large freelance network going. I have the creative directory, which is at thebrownbilleffect.com, and that's where people pay a yearly subscription to be listed, and I help to network them. So the whole business is about networking. And then finally I have the assistant register, where current students and graduates have a profile and they get listed on the assistant register, and I help them to find work with photographers, filmmakers, videographers and producers. And it keeps me pretty busy, and in the middle of it all I do collaborations with people like Tom and Harriet. I do a lot of work on a lot of course advisory boards and keep abreast of what's going on. Working with students is hugely important to me. The older I get, the younger it need to be listening to what they want. And in the time that I have worked, photography, like I was obviously working on film and in darkrooms as a young photographer, and as a young agent for photographers, I worked with a guy called Nadish Naoroji, who was the first guy to bring in a digital camera into the country. And I remember the camera was as big as this room, and he had stables near Caulfield Racecourse that he turned into a studio, and he employed me to bring the creative teams from all the agencies in to talk to them about this new thing called a digital camera.
Wow.
And it was huge, and they'd all be, and I'd do a cheese and wine night, and then they'd come around and they'd go, oh yeah, but we photograph fashion and we'd never be able to put them in a car or take it on a plane. And he's going, I'm telling you, in the next few years, they're going to be as big as your hand. And they're going, oh yeah. And so that was not that long ago, right, which is hilarious.
Amazing.
And so we've gone from that to what we do now. So this industry is so incredibly exciting. It changes every day, and where I sit in the industry, I love to bounce out of bed every single day and know that something completely different is going to occur with what I'm doing or who I'm working with, and look at it completely individually each time. So there you go. That's enough about me. Back to you.
That energy, you know, which you bring like now, is the same energy that I felt, you know, that first phone call that I had with you.
Right.
And it's a really unique balance of experience when you've got, like you said, not just experience within photography, but within life and all these different parts of it. But this incredible energy that you bring to it and passion in photography. And I think, you know, that's why we love to collaborate with you and to have these chats. So, and we definitely want to delve a little bit more into the platform that you've built as well, especially the creative directory. But what we might do is like handball it over to Harriet. And yeah, I guess, you know, we're equal partners in Photo Collective.
Yeah.
And maybe you can kind of talk about how that came to be.
Yeah, it's so interesting listening to you, Sally, because there's so many similarities actually. Just, working commercially to start with, going overseas. I went for a year and came back 9 years later. Assisting, working in the industry, getting your skills up, and I suppose that's when Tom and I met. 11 years ago, 12 years ago.
In 2014, we sort of had the first.
Well, when we first met,
was that before
in
that?
2009, I think. Yeah. And we were working commercially and doing a lot of different types of photography work and trying to figure out where we were, where was the best fit for us. And then it was the same project that you and Tom worked on initially, I think, when Tom went to Ghana. And he came back from that trip, and I was so inspired and motivated by what you were doing, and just thought, this is actually where I want to be working. I want to be working with projects and things that sort of meant something more than just trying to pay the rent. So I sort of said to Tom, I want to work with you. If you need a hand, if you need anything, I'll be there. So we sort of worked a little bit there, and we'd worked commercially, like I said, in the past as well. And after that Ghana exhibition, at the beginning of 2014, is when Tom approached me and said, I've got this idea, which I've heard many, many times since then.
It's like, no! What's he thinking?
Oh, it's amazing. So I think he'd had experience of, trying to get funding for the project that he was doing and finding it very hard. And he had this idea of creating a platform, an organisation, and a grant, perhaps, where we could try and give photographers an opportunity to get money and funding to produce projects that they were passionate about. And that's kind of where our working life started, I guess. And I think very quickly we sort of realised that if we were going to start off on that rung of the ladder, we might not get very far. And so we started bouncing around a lot more business ideas, and we came up with APA. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, Tom was building the Fox Darkroom, and I was having a baby, and a lot happened that year. And somehow we sort of managed to keep it all going and pull it all together.
It was sort of like three babies.
It was
not to diminish Jack, because he's the first and foremost.
A fox baby and a baby baby.
The APA baby, my baby Jack, and the Fox baby. So that's I always say that we had our three babies that year.
And they were kind of two, quite different directions in a way, because APA, which is, now in its sixth year.
Yes.
6 years.
Yes.
So, photography award. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
And Sal's been with us since dot. In
so
fact,
Sal was actually
Since
the very first person that we approached with a little PDF document, little 2-page document. We went to the Brown Bill Effects office, and she's the very first person we approached, and she said, I'll be a part of it.
Yeah.
Bring it on, I said.
Yeah. And from there we thought, okay, we can do this.
And then so did.
Well, so that started, and it's grown into a completely, I guess, different beast than what we envisioned when we started.
Yeah.
In the world of competitions, which we didn't really predict that was going to be what our life was going to entail.
Not at all.
Necessarily.
Yeah. Not
But
at
I
all.
think both of you are really good examples of how wonderful the photography and creative industry can be, where you take something and you roll with it and you go off on a tangent and you go, whoa, we didn't expect to do that, and how exciting is that?
And it evolves.
And that's what that excitement is, and it evolves, and what works and what doesn't work, and change it, and let's go back that way. And you're a great example of that with what you've been doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it works off, it requires other people as well, and I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons that we've learnt through this whole process, is that, we are really great administrators at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And we can bring a lot of energy to organising people and sharing ideas, but none of that works without a creative community.
And I think also that's what we want as well, more than anything. I think, again, what you were saying about the network, we've created Photo Collective, it's all in the name. We want to be working with other organisations, with other people, with, other businesses, with other photographers. It's all about that network. It's all about, bringing it all together. And that's what's been important to us right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just winding it back a bit.
Winding it
So APA started we started work on it really 2014.
2014
launched in 2016.
Yeah.
So 2 years of essentially, finding corporate partners to get on board with us and to, believe in the vision and shape it. And and at the same time, we started a crazy little venture of a community darkroom and gallery in Kensington, which was a really different sort of community. So for a long time, we kind of operated these quite separate entities.
2 businesses almost in separate ways.
Which we always felt it needed to come together in a way, but it took a really long time to do it. And so Photo Collective might be something which is quite new to a lot of people, but for us, it's actually, been kicking since 2014.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I guess like so so
Took
many
us 6 years to come up
businesses,
with the name.
we had a big change in 2020 and decided it was time to restructure and rethink about what we do.
Yeah, and in fact, it was the whole everything that's happened in the last 18 months. It was really that was the opportunity for us to, really build Photo Collective because, very sadly, Fox closed its doors and, the industry on a whole, the photography industry on a whole, had some hard times and we weren't working commercially as much. And it gave us all this space and opportunity and freedom just to sit on Zoom every day together.
And you can build so much like by just working like that.
You just find someone that and for me, it's always been about wanting to work with other people. And, when we sort of found each other, it's just you get that one PDF and you go to one person and, and they say, yep, I'm in. And you go, okay, I'll go to one more person. And, and that's how it starts.
I think it's about being tenacious and it's about having a vision, but also it's about always being open to people's ideas to help that vision come to life.
Absolutely.
And you guys have always been really great at asking questions and listening to people, but also being really driven and focused about what you want. And one of the things you didn't talk about was the Fox Gallery as well.
Yes.
So that was, it wasn't around for a really long time, but it was, how long was it?
So Fox opened 2014. We started the gallery in 2016.
Right.
Yeah.
And those few years of running the gallery were... I had a full head of hair before the gallery. So.
Yeah, but you had some that was an amazing time and some amazing exhibitions and the people that came through there, that was, that was an extraordinary
would never
time.
swap that,
that experience.
that experience and, that connection that we had with artists and that physical experience of seeing people engage with photography. And as much as the doors closed there is a lot of that on the horizon, I think, for all of us. And, But there's it just shows that there's lots of different ways to work, and I guess now, so going back to what Photo Collective is, and that's the kind of thing. There's like these big backstories behind all this. But so we're running an awards program which includes Australian Photography Awards, which is well and truly now one of the biggest awards in the country. We run the Stories Award, which is about series-based work. And just as of this year, our lovely friends at Memento Pro, who have run the Australian and New Zealand Photo Book Awards, asked us to facilitate that going forward.
The Australian side of the Photo Book Awards, so that's going to be opening up next month, and that's so exciting for us to delve into that world and work more with Memento Pro as well, and
and there's so many. It's such a changing beast every year. And I guess, as people who didn't necessarily envision ourselves running competitions, I think in some ways that's what's kept us, really hungry to do the best that we can. And it's a space that there is trepidation about. Like there's, there's questions about, why people pay entry fees is a big one. There's a lot of trepidation about, people, stealing copyright and, what rights photographers have in this process. And we think that there's creative solutions for all of this. It's not, you have to listen to what people are saying.
I think one of the biggest problems with creative people is they overthink things. Okay, so there's a lot of people that overthink, and it's just like, stop thinking about it and just do it. Just get out there and do it, be a part of it, do your research, do your due diligence, as we're told to do, and ask and talk to people. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that I see with the creative world, that where people hesitate because they're just, you know, I think there's so much information out there and information overload that people can kind of get exploded. Their brains kind of just go pop and they don't know the difference between right and wrong sometimes. So always just, I think, talk to people. And what I wanted to say with Memento Pro as well, like I do a lot of work and send a lot of people to Memento Pro once I've designed portfolios as well, that all of us, Memento Pro, these guys and myself, we are part of a network that we all support each other, and that's also really a beautiful thing, what we've done with both of our collectives, if you like, as well as with Jeff and Libby and Memento Pro and what they've created too. It's beautiful.
I mean, it is a collaboration.
It is.
At the end
It
of the
absolutely
day.
is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, that stops, it doesn't sort of, you know, like for Sally, it begun, you know, with that process of really editing and curating that exhibition. It grew into, you know, Sally coming, well, essentially just listening to us and supporting the idea of what APA was at the beginning. And now we're doing more work together than ever before, you know, and I think that's a really exciting thing and a really key ingredient for people who are looking for support within the industry. Is that it can't just be a one-sided thing. It has to be, you know, you both have to bring things to the table, and you know, we want to see photographers thriving because that helps businesses thrive. So it's a whole ecosystem that you're trying to see.
It is a whole ecosystem, and whilst we've had this, you know, really interesting couple of years, let's call it 2 years, because
it is.
Let's call it 2 years because it is. You know, for people like the three of us, we have looked at our businesses and we have prospered, I believe. Your entire career is about building blocks, and there's always going to be things in your life that blow in that just go, wow, how do I cope with this? And I think the way that that we have looked at our companies and gone, right, well, what's working, what's not working, how can we make it better, how can we, and we've used this time for good and not for evil. As far as the commercial world goes, for me, each time we've come out of a lockdown, photography has just gone nuts, right? And then we go back down in. But because what you've got to remember, commercially speaking, is that whilst photographers are not currently working throughout COVID, things are being designed, campaigns are being built, everything's happening. And then when we open up,
there's a window.
There's this window, and photographers just go nuts. So that's a really positive thing. And I think we do want to be around people that are the glass is half full. Not the glass is half empty. I think there's a lot of, like, you know, dragging your knuckles along the ground, but, you know, we refuse to be like that, and I'm really proud of how we are always looking for the positives amongst, you know, really tough times. But it's a good thing.
And I guess just following on from there, so we've kind of touched on a few times that balance between, I guess, like an artistic practice and a commercial practice, which is something which isn't really talked about, I think, enough in photography, because look, everyone goes into it because they've got the drive creatively, and that's what, you know, gets them out of bed, and that's what, you know, where the passion comes from. But longevity within this industry,
you still got to
pay the rent.
Right. And, you know, like what a lot of people don't realise is some of these, you know, amazing exhibitions that you go to or books that you see. Some of these artists have got commercial practices which are really supporting a lot of this. So I wonder if you can talk about that side of it a bit.
Absolutely. I work a lot with, there's several groups of people, and a couple that I'll talk about are commercial photographers that have perhaps fallen out of love with photography, that have spent years paying mortgages, school fees, whatever it might be, and they've had a fairly successful time, but they've actually fallen out of love with photography. So what's really important for them is to have an art practice where that's where they can get their creative on. You know, and so about talking to them about how to balance that. You know, we know in Australia it is really hard to make money out of photographic art. Like, it does happen, but to sustain that is really tough. So as Tom just said, a lot of these exhibitions and beautiful books and documentaries that you look at and are a part of, these photographers are a daily either doing still shoots on film sets, or they're doing school portraiture, or they're food photographers, or they're commercial advertising photographers that are making money to feed their craft. And I think that's a really healthy balance for a lot of people, and mostly the people that are coming through universities that just want to be an artist. go for it by all means. And if you don't want to sell your soul to the commercial photography world, it might be another job that you do and have a day job in IT to feed that. I think there has to be that balance of making money and understanding the business of photography, even to understand how to pull a book together or to put an exhibition together or how to get an audience or how to market yourself.
Yeah.
There's all of those things as well. So it can work, it does work hand in hand really beautifully, but you need to understand time management and how much time you allow for each practice.
Yeah.
Because too much on either side, too much commercial work will, you'll get a bit down in the dumps, and too much of this, you're not going to make money. So it is a fine line that you have to tread.
Yeah.
But it's also a very personal one, and it depends on where you are at that point in your life. Do you have young children, or are you living in a share house, or do you need to travel a lot, whatever it might be. So the commercial world is an interesting one, and I also think that those photographers that are commercially orientated, that have an art practice, it's when they do have exhibitions, it's fantastic to be able to invite your clients to your exhibitions. And so there's a lot of architectural photographers that I have worked with over the years that also have a beautiful art practice. And so then they invite architects and stylists and property developers to their exhibitions. And guess what? They've got money and they're buying their art to put into their properties. And so it can feed in.
Yeah.
That's such an interesting point, I think, and one of the questions we get a lot from, people who are interested in pursuing an art practice and doing exhibitions and things of that nature is there's always this dream of like a market for their artwork out there, and people dream of, gallery representation and things of that nature. But in reality, the people that are your best people to support your practice are the people around you, and that goes back to what you were saying about your clients supporting your work, which I think has really, been true personally.
Absolutely.
But also just the people who you grow up with, interestingly. And I think one thing that they never really tell you when you set out in photography is that at some point, the people that are your own age are going to end up in positions where they're hiring photographers. They might end up at ad agencies or businesses. And
that's why you've got to be nice to everybody. Otherwise, maybe one day they're going to be your boss.
You never know.
That nerdy kid at school.
Yeah.
But absolutely.
It's
and
like
that's
the best kept secret. It's so easy.
But that's what a network is.
Yeah.
So your network always starts with your family, and it starts with your family's friends and your neighbours and your aunties and your uncles and your friends' parents, and that's where your network starts.
And then it goes to their
my
friends.
my first jobs were photographing weddings of my big brother's friends that were getting married, and so that's how it all started. And it doesn't matter where a network's a network, and then it's like their human Facebook. And I think it comes really naturally to someone
It's such a better version of Facebook.
Well, it comes really naturally to someone like me, because I started my career without a telephone, without a computer, without anything. So I had no choice but to just talk to people.
Yeah.
So the business I wanted to call Big Mouth, but there was already a restaurant in St Kilda called that at the time.
Frequent.
And but talking, you're going into a world of communication and you're communicating with people. So I used that word before, tenacious. I think that's a really good way to be within photography, and also to understand listen to your gut, but also to understand when opportunity arises. And if you are really nervous to put an exhibition together and you really don't know about it, maybe get 3 or 4 people to put an exhibition together.
Yes, work with other people.
And work with other people. Like you spoke to Tom, and let's work together and collaborate, because 2 or 4 heads are better than one sometimes. And then, because it's a learning curve, if you do that and you go, wow, that did my head in, that was so not good, I'm going to do the next one on my own. I feel really confident.
Yeah.
So it's about trying. There's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
And that's also what's really, it's not a math calculation, thank God, because I can't do maths. It's about testing the waters and trying things and what works for you at this point in your life.
Well, the experiments is definitely something that we're doing a lot of at the moment. Maybe you can talk about we've got this new publication which we've launched.
Yeah, so I guess just going back a bit, I think the developing APA into Photo Collective is always, I think the APA became a great business model, and that's where you have to start, I think, because if you don't have a good business model for yourselves, then how are you ever going to help anyone else? So I think became a really good business model, but we really found that we were wanting to celebrate the artists who were submitting to APA, not just hand out prizes and move on. We wanted to work with them to do Q&As, to do little videos, to really promote what was going on in Australian photography. And so by changing the branding of APA into Photo Collective, we really found that we could have a much bigger platform and a lot more content that we could put out on Australian photographers and Australian photography. And I guess there's always been a dream of ours to be able to produce a in-print magazine and something that's tangible that you can hold on to rather than just on a website. Yeah, exactly. And so, again, working with Memento Pro and the wonderful people there, we came to this, wonderful partnership we have and collaboration where, we're putting out this first magazine, which should arrive next month, Photo Collective Issue 1, Photo Collective Magazine Issue 1. It's just been absolutely wonderful. We've done a community call for submissions. So people have, submitted their projects, and on our side, we've worked to sort of curate them a little bit. In some cases, we've, included the whole project. In other cases, we've just taken little pieces of it and edited the whole magazine together in a way that's just been so rewarding for us, and just a really exciting way to take what we've done online and just to be able to put it out into the world.
And I think, I guess...
Congratulations.
Yay. Well, we can't wait to
start
see
talking
it.
to Australia Post now if it's meant to be coming. So
we're so excited to see it.
It's quite unique because, print is printed magazines is like a thing that's massively declined.
What's up printed portfolios? I've never not done printed portfolios. I love them. People love them. People love print.
Well, everyone loves it, but in terms of, how many magazines have you seen disappear? Photography magazines.
Of course they have, but they'll come back.
And we've looked at that and we've thought, well, when we're not going to make something that's beginning with 10,000 copies. We're going to start really small, and for the first edition, we're doing 200 copies, and we're looking at building a subscription base to start that, and then growing that, with time.
Growing
it's
from
fantastic.
there.
So just approaching
and by subscribing, you get, you're able to submit to each issue. So we're sort of hoping again just to keep that. It's really, the community is. Submitting and we're curating it, but it's a joint effort.
But that network will keep it live, and also bucking the trend is hugely important. In what we do. Why be like everybody else, and why do the norm? I mean, we want to work with photographers that can offer us something different, or organisations that offer us something unique.
And there's so many photographers in Australia that are not represented, and there's so many that are always at the forefront, and there's just room to be able to, for both.
Give them a voice.
To give the underrepresented people a voice.
But the funding is a huge other part, and we all need to find ways to, to be paid for our work, and that's something that we're really proud of. Is that the magazine is really a reflection of our community's work first and foremost, but it's funded by our community and it pays the contributors. So it's a model that, I don't know, I find that so refreshing that it really is the people who are submitting who are also allowing artists to be paid for their work, which is so important.
Beauty.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot as well.
So proud of you both.
I'm so proud of you, Sal.
No one's proud of me. So we've talked a bit as well. It's been touched on a bit about emerging photographers and students, and I know that's a really strong focus for you, Sal. And you work with the institutions. You're really involved here at PSC. Can you talk a little bit about, why that's so important to you, and what you learn from that continued change?
Well, I guess I guess you guys are the future of photography, you know, and when I started teaching back in the mid-90s, when many of you were probably not born, I didn't realise what I was starting then. But those photographers now are hugely seasoned photographers with many, many years' experience, and I've gone on their entire journey. But every year I've gone on a new journey, every single year for 25 years. And that's just been so thrilling to be a part of that journey of all of these people who... and watch their careers grow and their ups and the downs, and being a part or being working with young people is really important to me because, you know, they have a different energy, you know, and they're discovering new things and they come from different places, and the student of today is so different to the student of 10 years ago.
Yeah.
The technology they use, and but a student of today, when they discover the darkroom, you know, I love that, you know, and they think, wow, you know, whereas that's all students 20 years ago did. And I also love imparting knowledge, and I talked right at the very beginning about learning a lot about life, and photography is about a lot of life lessons as well. And when I was a student, apart from our lecturers, we didn't have mentorships, and there was really people, I think if I knew then what I know now, I probably would have been a documentary photographer because I love telling stories, but that's not something that I knew anything about when I was studying a degree. And so to be able to give people options, and I also feel that there is always too many options as well, and to help people narrow down what their strengths and weaknesses are, I think is really important. And I feel that after all of the experiences that I have a really good sound knowledge, and I'm not afraid to tell people the truth, but in a warm, fuzzy way.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's really important, that people understand where they can improve and what they're also doing really well.
Yeah.
And I've had some people ring me and say, listen, I love jewellery, and I'm a jewellery photographer, and that's what I want to do more of. And I say, fantastic, we'll come and we'll have a look at it. And they'll turn up with 60 portraits and 3 pieces of jewellery. And so they don't work out why they're not getting more jewellery photography, and so it's about helping them to realise that dream as well. And I think that's really that's hugely inspiring for me.
And that outside perspective can just be so grounding as well.
Yeah, you need, you know, your partners and your parents and your grandparents and your next door neighbours. Everybody goes, oh my God, that's lovely, that's lovely. But you really do need a second set of eyes and ears to help you make sense of what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And how many of you, and nobody is any different, you do a whole shoot and there's 50 images in the shoot and you've got to pick 3. Like, how do you pick those 3? And sometimes you get it down to 12 or 10. And it's like, I love the fact that I can come in with no emotional attachment to images.
Yes.
And that's really important, because everything you shoot, and you know, I've got a really great example. There was a guy that showed me his folio, and he had a beautiful folio, and there was this one photo that was all right. It was of a really attractive lady and everything, and I said, what's that doing? And then he goes, that is staying there because that is the day I fell in love with my wife. Right? She was a model on the shoot, and I bloody love it. And I said, take it out of your folio and hang it on your wall. Right? Because it doesn't work. And so, and he was like going, yeah, right, okay. So anyway, there's 1,000 funny stories. Everybody is unique and individual, and I love helping them to bring that out in them, because I think as a student it's very easy to kind of go, well, what are you doing? And do I need to be more like Tom because he's doing all this fantastic stuff? And the answer is absolutely not
at all.
Because the only point of difference that you have to Tom and Harriet and me is you.
Yeah.
Right? And what is your personality? And helping people realise that is
what's
hugely...
your story?
Yeah, what is your story?
What's your story? What are we seeing of you in your imagery?
Absolutely. And how do you present it, and how do you talk about it? And, you know, what floats your boat? And where are you? Again, I keep talking about where are you at this point in your life? What's going to work for you now will be very different to, or, you know, what you're going to be doing. It could be very different.
Yeah, I mean, that leads really... segueing right into, you know, like looking at our Stories Award. So we've been open for 2 years now. We were open last year for the first time, and then open this year. And it's just wonderful to see the change in how people have approached that particular award, being a series of 5 to 10 images and a description and a whole, you know, a mini essay about what the work is about. And this year was just so personal. So personal. And just people really getting to the heart of who they are and putting their hearts on the table for us. And whether it's shooting around the home, shooting their families, shooting where they can be in their 5 kilometres.
And shooting themselves.
Or shooting
too,
like them, themselves and the you know, the things that are going on within them. You know, it's just been so incredible. So there's always something to photograph.
Cindy Sherman would be out there sort of going, yeah, okay, finally you're all photographing yourself.
Yeah, totally.
But I think that's you know, we talked earlier about really kind of responding to how the creative community responds. And I think this year, like what we saw was people letting down their guard in a way that we'd never seen in terms of you know, sharing personal stories.
Yeah.
And for us, you know, running an organisation in this space, we always think about how this can be less transactional and more meaningful. And that changed the way that we run the award, essentially. We went, well, we can't just deliver results anymore. We need to be available for people to, if they want to talk and have feedback, then you know, we have to make that space if people are going to put themselves out there in that way.
And there were so many, you know, wonderful projects that, you know, didn't get into that shortlist, but we just felt like, receiving that no email just wasn't, you know, it wasn't good enough. And so we actually wrote a personal email to, it was a group email, but it was personal from our account to everyone, just to, you know, say, we see you, we're hearing what you're saying, you know, just because you know, they've not got through this year, it doesn't mean that we haven't acknowledged you, and we want to talk to you more about it.
That means so much.
And being able to offer that space where we can communicate one-on-one or two-on-one, you know, as to it's not a no because your work's not good enough. It's, you know, we want to tell you that. You know, and
I think that's tomorrow's all about. Right?
Yeah, that's what tomorrow's all about. Yeah,
I can see that there's a lot of questions wrapping up on the screen there, and I think we've got about 15 minutes, so we might jump into some of those. So the first one that I can see is how have photography competitions changed from film days to digital? So Sal, do you want to? You talked about being a darkroom tech to start.
Do you want me to get my walking stick out? How have photography well, you know, I'm going to be, I might be going out on a limb here, but I feel like photographers have become a little bit lazier with the digital, and that's very controversial, and that's probably a whole other topic. I think things were a lot more simple in the darkroom, but images happened in frame. It was all done in camera. Whereas now a lot of things are done in camera.
Manipulation is done a little bit, but maybe not to the extent.
Maybe not to the extent. So look, how have the competitions changed? I don't know that they have changed a whole lot. It's still about producing imagery that answers the brief to the competition. I think that's really important. I judge a lot of competitions, and sometimes people are just completely off brief, or they supply 3 images or 4 images. So if I was to think about it, I don't think that a lot has changed between print and digital. It's still about photography. It's still about making an impact.
It's about the work.
It's about the work, and it doesn't matter whether it was digital or print. I don't think, but
it's the content, not the format.
It is absolutely about the content. And my lazy conversation is more about another topic, I think.
Well, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
That sounds juicy. So.
Yeah, it is juicy.
And like for us,
what do you think? Do you think between print and digital it's changed a lot?
We've been a digital competition always. So, I mean, when
we've had analogue categories, and we accept analogue work for sure, but it's an online platform.
Digital submissions.
Yeah. It's an online platform.
So people can shoot however they want to shoot.
Well, okay, so on that note, let me think about it, because I hadn't sort of thought about this question. What it has done is it's made competitions more accessible to the masses, right?
Yeah.
So because you can enter competitions all over the world. When it was print, we didn't do that.
Yes.
A few people did.
Yeah.
Right, but you rarely pack something up and sent it off to Germany. I mean, people did do it, or they travelled there.
Yeah.
But digital competitions have enabled it for everybody, and it's enabled working parents to put their images in, and so I guess it's created a lot more opportunity for many, many more people. That would be probably my better answer now that I've thought about it.
Well, we weren't prepared for the question.
No.
That was pretty good. But I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
I think analog photography has been always really well represented in our platform, absolutely. And it's not, we are darkroom nerds as well, but I mean, that's not the reason. It's at the end of the day, it still needs to, be a great photograph and a great idea behind that.
Absolutely.
That's the important part for
and
us.
beautifully executed and printed and thought out and if there's a series, they need to be related to each other and all of those things. But competitions, they all have different rules. They all have different requirements. Look at them. Look at the size. Look at, is there up to 3 images or is it 3 images, All of those sorts of things are really important.
Yeah, and look at the past galleries as well. That look what the competition or the award is looking for and has looked for in the past. Because I think some differ, and looking at past galleries and what they're looking for is probably really.
And that can work kind of both ways too, because you can look for sure about the kind of the flavour of the work that people are looking for, but then you can also see what's done really well the year before and maybe respond with something really different from that, original. So it's that,
it's true. Because we don't want to be putting out the same work year after year. Like the whole basis of our award is that we want to be finding new work and new imagery and things that we haven't seen before or things done in a way we've not seen before. And
so we've got a really easy one for the next question, Harry, which is how does Australian Photography Awards handle copyright photos?
Copyright always stays with the photographer.
Next.
Always, undoubtedly, 100% stays with the photographer.
And it's something I think, we advertise the awards, and so you get people writing the first thing that comes into their head into the comments, and more often than not, that's the concern. They're it's a legitimate concern.
Absolutely.
Because there are programs out there that aren't putting photographers first.
Yep.
And if the photographer doesn't stay, if the copyright doesn't stay with the photographer, then you think very seriously about entering it. But for us, it always 100% stays with the photographer. We often use imagery from past years through advertising. A lot of times we'll try and reach out to the photographer and get approval for that. If it seems like the image is sensitive, we'll reach out to the photographer. This year we used an image to kick off the campaign and we altered it slightly. We put a red filter over it. But we reached out to the photographer and made sure that it was okay because we'd actually altered the image, and we don't do that normally. So, there's
a few things. There's the copyright always and unconditionally. The images are always credited, and we try to put handles and Instagram handles and things like that.
Yeah, we've been pulled up a couple of times, but we try and
And probably the other thing is if there's ever a time where somebody didn't want us to use their image in that way. Even after they've entered the award, and
take it down.
And I think there's also the issue that that a lot of photographers get confused about with the difference between copyright and usage.
Yes. Yeah.
So you always, as Tom and Harriet have said, you always own the copyright to your image. But if you are selling or you have photographed for a client. You give them the right to use that for a period of time, but you still own the copyright. So they're allowed to use that for 5 years, and they can put it all over whatever they want because they've paid you for it. But after 5 years is up, you still own the copyright, and that's it. And if they want to continue to use it, they have to come back to you. That is tough to police.
It is,
but that is the right thing to do.
Yeah,
and it's just another example of how that commercial mindset is kind of needed in that world of trying to put yourself out there as an artist, because you need to understand what you're signing up for.
Absolutely. And on that note, we don't expect anybody, and I'm certainly not a master of everything, but I surround myself with a copyright lawyer, an accountant, a bookkeeper, people that I can go to and refer to when questions come up, because I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Neither are you guys. I'm not an accountant. So you surround yourself with all of these really people in their own, they surround themselves with a photographer that can shoot food or architecture.
Yeah.
So that's another thing as part of your journey in the business of becoming a photographer, the people that surround you and help you to gain that.
Yes.
Always
ask questions. Always ask questions to anyone around. No questions stupid. Just always.
I'm called the pro.
Always ask questions to your peers.
I ask so many questions.
Yeah, the pro.
But that's different. That's a mum thing, I think.
So the next question's an interesting one too. It's you know, in our experience, is it better to sell photographs online or in person? And if we have any tips for selling photography online. Well, this is a whole changing topic at the moment, especially, isn't it? The whole chat about, what is it,
NFTs?
NFTs.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, that's
Can you just explain what an NFT is?
Oh, God, that's a whole...
Non-fungible, my husband, token, thank
Token,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. My husband's a bit into his crypto and NFTs and things at the moment, so he's giving me a bit of advice on this. But it's a really interesting area of... that's happening, and I mean, I don't really know much about it, so I'm not going to sit here and preach and sound like I do. But yeah, it's very early stages. But I think this is kind of where it's buying the digital rights to the image, basically.
Which is like such an obscure thing for people to wrap their head around.
Yes.
But think back to when stock library started. And like, I mean, it's really not that different in a way. I mean, once upon a time, it was all about print, right? Or about the negative at least. And now people, you know, at that period, they became available en masse, you know, digitally to ad agencies. And I'm sure, you know, watching the rise of that and, you know, there would have been so much worry and hype and concern and fear and all those things.
There was, but there was this whole movement of not just stills photographers, but also filmmakers that took stills photographs that made loads of money from photographic libraries, you know, loads of money. Yeah. And I've got a dear friend who is a DOP, and he still occasionally gets this whopping check for this great image he shot in 1975 or something, you know, and they were curious, but what they ended up doing was they stopped a lot of commercial photographers getting jobs because people would go to image libraries.
Yes.
But then we got clever and we started marketing it to companies to say, well, why don't you take a photographer and we can do an entire personal image library for Telstra, for instance, or whoever it might be, and they go,
and then you have different images
so
from what's out there.
Yes, and so that you can have 500,000 just images of, you can pick your talent and your locations, and so the whole thing about the question is it easy to sell online or not? I don't know anything about what you were just talking about, the token thing, but...
fungible, non-fungible tokens.
Right, but it's all about marketing yourself. How good are you at marketing it yourself, you know? How good is your website? How good are your, what I find extraordinary is the amount of people that I work with that have websites that don't have a phone number on them.
Yeah.
Because, I don't want creepy people ringing me. Well, okay, so the chances of that are probably slimmer than people that might want to ring you for work.
But actually, and
creepy people like artwork too.
Creepy people like artwork. And so then I sort of go, well, maybe just get another phone just for your website, then you carry two phones around. Like, my phone is everywhere. It's on the toilet wall here, probably. I don't know, but I don't get creepy people phoning me. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah,
maybe they are, and I talk to them.
Yeah.
But the gallery thing, I think, is a really, because I mean, there's a lot of specific focus on, to sell your artwork, you've got to do a show, and like I think it is such an exciting thing for somebody to do within their practice, and it's like there's. I mean, you know, like I pine for that, like that's what gets me out of bed in the morning, but there's also a huge cost that comes with that.
Absolutely there is.
And then, you know, maybe making, I mean, you know, we talked about Memento Pro again before, like maybe that's a really much more viable option is to actually produce a book and to be selling a book, not by the thousands, but, you know.
But it all gets back down to marketing yourself.
Yeah.
Right? How people, who's looking at your work? Is it looking at it online? Are you at a market stall on the weekend selling a book? You know, the world that you're going into is about communication.
Yeah.
Right? And it's how best you communicate that. So again, I'm going to say there is no right or wrong about how you do things. It's about getting your message out there the best way that you can, and you've got to try a little bit of everything. try it online, try it in person, have an exhibition, sell the book at the exhibition.
Yeah.
I mean, if I go to an exhibition and there's a book, there's 99.9% of the time I'll buy it.
Yeah.
You know, because I sort of think, well, it's cost them a lot to put this on. My $50 or $150 is going to help pay for tonight.
Yeah.
You know, I can't afford the image, or I don't have a space to put an image like that, but I've got the book.
I can get the book.
You know?
Yeah, definitely.
And I think,
And if you get it signed as well.
Creative solutions. There's always creative solutions for this.
Absolutely.
But I think it goes back as well to what we touched on earlier, which is if you want to sell your artwork, don't, you know, I mean, like absolutely go for the gallery representation and try to, you know, make it in that space if that's where you're hungry, you know, to go. But start with your network because that's where you're going to start the process, and you'll be amazed at how willing just the people around you are to support you in that way if you give them the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
And you know, it's about supporting one another. And you know, the cohort that you guys are in at the moment, you know, my cohort that I was in was one of the most extraordinary years that RMIT had ever seen, and I feel comfortable and confident saying that. We had people come out of our year like Jeff Morfoot, who started the Ballarat Biennale, and Heather Dinas and Kim Tonelli and Tracy Rowe, who's a TV director, and me. But there was Daniela Federici, who's in New York, being fabulous. And, you know, it was an extraordinary cohort that we still are all in contact with each other. And you will also help each other throughout your career, whether it's assisting each other now or whether you do go into the art space but shoot food on the side and a friend wants a wedding photographed or their home photographed and you go, it's not my thing, but this person I studied with, and you start feeding each other work. And again, it's got that network thing going on.
Absolutely.
So the network starts here. It starts in the classroom.
So the next one's one specifically for you, Sal.
I was trying to read it and talk at the same time, but I'm good.
I know, stop reading because I can't, I'm getting distracted.
So is it possible to critique a photographer's work to gauge whether the work has legs? To critique a photographer's work to gauge whether the work has legs? I'm not sure I get that exactly.
Well,
so I guess is that like face value of the work? So if someone comes in with a folio for the first time, can you see potential in that beyond
straight away
what's given to you in those pages?
150%. You know, and that's where the honesty comes through. You know, mostly people are coming to me for advice, and I during one of the in-between lockdowns, I had a much more mature person come to visit me who was an artist, just a pure artist. He had had an entire other career. And he only had 6 images, and we spent 2 hours just talking about 6 images. It was really interesting, and I was able to, it was quite an intense period of time, but he was ready to put them out into the world. But he had spent so much time and he'd overthought them so much that there was still so much more that he could do. But he'd sort of blocked it. Yes, so I can tell whether work's going to have legs, whether it's commercial or art-based. And if it's not quite ready, I think it's really important to be able to talk about why it's not, where the idea has perhaps gone a little bit off kilter, and encourage them to re-look at it and come back again and refigure it. So,
I guess, that wasn't for us, but I think we can kind of contribute to that. Because so often in what we see through the awards programs is project work which hasn't been fully resolved. And so often we're looking at work which maybe isn't complete, but we're able to see, you know, the potential in what they're working on.
It's a word we use a lot, isn't it? The potential in that.
So the question then is like, well, how do you grow that, you know? And how do you connect with people to, you know, for them to improve and to continue their practice?
Yeah, by having conversations and by reaching out and for us to try and build more platforms to create spaces where we can do mentoring or bring other people in to mentor, or it's about having those conversations and getting other people to look at it so you can detach yourself from the personal, I guess, in a way, and have someone with fresh eyes look at it, I think. But we see that a lot. Oh, just that was there and that was there and that bit was there. I think Sorry, I think my
We've got
mic's...
an audio malfunction.
Yeah, my audio. Sorry, everyone.
Thank you. So the next question, we've just got a really lovely compliment for us. So I think we won't read that out loud, but we really appreciate that. I think that's from Paul maybe, which is really nice. So the next question, are we able to move the screen up a bit, guys? Thank you. Hi, I'm 16 and loving this seminar. Was just wondering if there is any section of your competition for youth.
Oh, there is
yes,
actually.
we do. We've got
Julie from Nikon is jumping for joy at the back there.
so like we do have we've got various categories for
Yeah.
APA, so different themes like portraiture, landscape, and so forth. But we've got a student category which is open for anybody enrolled in tertiary studies or in high school.
Or high school, yeah.
So
And we've
how old, what is your minimum? It's
Well,
like the
we've got
voice,
a-
like how old do
The
you have to be?
student is open to anyone, so as long as you can show
10,
that you're
11-year-olds?
studying. Yeah.
Yep, great.
But we also have a junior category as well, and this year it's 15 years and under. And we started that 2 or 3 years ago, and it's an absolute joy, actually. It's just so wonderful to see these amazing young kids putting themselves out there, taking amazing photos, and mainly the text and the language that they use with their work as well is
And it's a collaboration
unbelievably
sometimes
refreshing.
too. Like you can see that they're able to partner with their family to sometimes make the pictures or...
And do you know what's so great? Sorry to cut you off, Tom. No, keep going.
No, you go.
I've been really good. I haven't cut you off at all
Haven't you?
tonight.
I'll say one more thing then,
Go.
which is something that we're just so
Had to
proud
do
of
one.
this
Yeah.
year is, it's the first year that we've got juniors that are actually involved
Judging
in
the
judging the junior category.
junior category.
So,
Our winner from last year, Harper Allen,
Yeah.
and the second place junior from 2 years ago, Willow McGonigal, are they're going to be on the panel this year. And
Did you pick them because of their groovy names?
We absolutely picked them because of their groovy names. You should see their groovy profile pics as well on our website. They're amazing.
Well, what I was going to say when I rudely cut... I've cut you off
Yeah,
too!
you have, Sal.
Sorry, keep going.
Jeez.
Keep going. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying again, I just can't wait to get their perspective and really have that all the way through the whole process.
and over to you, Sally. What have you got?
Oh, my
Now,
turn.
Sal.
Oh, sorry. What I was going to say was I love looking at young photographers' work because they don't have the noise that older photographers
Yeah.
have, right? So I have been, as we've discussed, all of us working with young people taking photographs for a very long time, and you see them come into a course and they're hugely creative and there's no noise, and then they learn about lighting and they learn about lenses and they learn about cameras, and what's the first to go? Their creativity goes right out
because
the
they
door.
think they've got to do it this way,
Correct.
because that's how everyone else has
And
done
so
it.
when you don't know a whole lot, and that's
Yeah.
what, dare I say, iPhones has been such an extraordinary thing for people as well, because it's just about composition, really,
Yeah.
isn't it? And so it's so fantastic. So whoever you are at 16, you get
Yeah.
involved in this and start shooting. And the best advice that I can give you is just
stay true.
stay true to yourself and shoot, and don't overthink it. Shoot and shoot and shoot from the hip and shoot
Yeah.
with your eyes closed and have a great time.
And I think a really good example of what Sally just said is in our junior categories on the website. For any photographer, not just juniors, but just read the captions that the juniors write on their imagery. We ask for titles and descriptions, and the descriptions that the juniors write they're amazing because it's just free. It's free and it's flowing, and it's not overly thought out. And it's just a lot. I've learned a lot from just trying to be free with my words when I'm relating them to my images. So they teach me a lot.
Love that. So the last question that we have here is actually, I think we're kind of answering it at the same time, which is we've got a young photographer who's under 18 who's looking to progress their photography and to make it as a
Into
career.
a career,
Sorry, there's a camera right in the way of the screen there, hence the dodging and weaving.
The one that we're actually,
But I think we sort of touched a little bit on that. Have you got anything that you'd want to add?
Do just shoot.
Yeah.
Just shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and just try new things. Do your research on photographers that you love.
Yeah.
Photography is so accessible these days.
Yes.
Have a look at photographers in America and Europe, and have a look at the Cartier-Bressons and the Cindy Shermans and the older photographers as well that You know, the projects that were happening back in those days, the Farmer Security Administration projects, and, you know, the beginning of documentary photography in the 1930s. Just be inspired, go to movies, dare to be different.
Yeah.
And then whilst you're at university, I guess if you're under 18, you're still at high school, have a think about what sort of course that you'd like to do. Is it a Cert 4? Is it a degree? Is it a diploma? There's no right or wrong way to immerse yourself in photography and just start learning and start those building blocks. And if you live, wherever you live, probably in the local area, there's going to be some commercial photographers, or if you're into wedding photography or whatever it might be, ring a photographer up and say, look, I'd love to do some work experience with you. So just start getting involved, start making the network. You might also know stylists or producers or food technologists or anybody that works with photographers. Start talking to them, start letting them know, start looking at their library as well. That's really important.
Yeah.
How about you for Harry?
Yeah, I think, just shoot, just keep shooting. And I think also, like, it's really important to go back at the historical photography, but also contemporary photography as well. I think that's really interesting how people are shooting today. And, you know, there's amazing family documentary photographers that are shooting in the home, and there's, you know, artistic photographers that are shooting crazy things, and then there's all these commercial photographers as well. And I think, you know, if it's also, you know, if study's not your thing as well, which it can be for a lot of art-based students. It was for me for a long time. I didn't go back to study for a while until I was in my 20s. But if you're into it, just ring up those photographers anyway. Ring up and say, I want to assist, and just be diligent and get there on time and just work hard. And it doesn't matter if you're green and you don't know a lot. If you listen and you work hard and you're a good person and
you've got a fire in your belly.
And you've got a fire in your belly, like I'd pick you up. You know, I don't want someone that knows everything. I want someone that wants to go on it with me. So I think that's just, you know, just be true to yourself and go on your own path.
Yeah. I think my tip would be to photograph the things that you love and care about. And it sounds a bit obvious, but actually I think that's the key to photography is, you know, we think that we need to go to the other side of the world to make these incredible images, but actually the people around you and the stuff that you feel strongest about is the key to making powerful work. So start small. Start with somebody who you care about. See if you can make a portrait of them. You know, and this is where these long form projects grow out of. And I tell you, if anybody practicing as an artist or a documentary photographer could go back and start a project like that and work on it long term.
Well, I think from what you were talking about before too, that's what COVID's taught photographers. Even me, I've started shooting a lot more in COVID because we're shooting everything in the house. Or, you know, when it first started, I live in Richmond and photographed the empty streets. You know, it was like, and so those things that are closest to you. And there's there's a commercial photographer now that each week he's doing this beautiful photograph of a piece of a vegetable or a flower or, you know, and just trying different techniques. And that's great advice, Tom.
I think all of that, you know, it's essentially about keeping yourself inspired and just being free with it, because that's where it stems from, the creativity, and keeping that alive, I think, is such a key part.
So writing notes and making write about it, get it out of your head, don't just think about it, which Tom always says to me. I say, I don't know what to do, I need to get it. He goes, write it down, get it out of your head, just make notes and then go and shoot.
So I think to wrap it up, if we can maybe, I think we've dished out all the advice that we can, but I wonder if there's one more little gem that we can kind of pass on before we...
Okay. It's a curly one, Tom. I wasn't prepared for that, but I think my advice would be own it. Own what it is you're doing, love it, and stay true to yourself all throughout your career. Just go with your gut and own it.
Love it.
Yeah.
For you?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to say that, you know, the same thing, really. It's just, photograph what you want to photograph, keep shooting, and find someone that you'd enjoy working with. And if that's the way you want to work, just start doing it. Just Just put it out there, whatever way. You don't have to have a big gallery exhibition. You don't have to start trying to get massive jobs with advertising agencies. Just start putting things on Instagram, or start a little, a little zine, or, whatever it is. Just start.
So mine is actually kind of related to both of those, which I think is really interesting, which is, to start any process, big or small, it becomes about talking about it to begin with.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what we did with Sally multiple times. That's what we did. So, even, that question that was asked, that's already beginning that process.
Yep.
And, you might feel like you don't know where that is. We've given you some suggestions in terms of like reaching out to photographers. There's so many opportunities out there. There's courses that you can come and do at PSC, the Nikon School, like another great opportunity to, find other people who are wanting to grow in that way. So
and just take that. Don't be nervous about, is my work good enough or not? It doesn't matter. Just bring it in. There's always something you can learn. And, we're doing sessions tomorrow, consultations. We've got 10 slots, and I think 6 are booked. So there's, I think they're only open to PSC students, but, take the opportunities. Just talk about it. Get your work out there. The more you get it out, the more you learn.
So I hope you enjoyed us rambling and chatting, and we could probably go on for another hour, but I think we'll call it there.
Yeah.
So
We so could.
Just one more time, like a huge thank you to Julie and the team from Nikon for just allowing
Facilitating.
all this to happen. Can you come in?
Come into the fold.
And
I'm making
PSC.
myself known.
Yeah.
I'd just like to say thank you to all of you, to Sally, to Tom and to Harry. What an amazing, amazing conversation. And I have to say that, we've been dealing with you for the last couple of years and it is so refreshing. You guys are so proactive, you are so inclusive, all of you. You get out there and it's not about the destination, it's always about the journey. Your journey in life, the whole stories that you tell, your passions, and how do you get there. And Sally, the same with you. You're bringing people in from the grassroots and you're helping them on their journey, and our journey never finishes. And isn't it nice to be around people that are just so inclusive and just fun? So
Sure is.
I do have to say this, and I think it's really wonderful that Sally, you're there, and Harry, you're here, because I really have wanted to say, when did Harry meet Sally, and was Tom there? And they were.
I knew where you were going with that.
Oh golly, I wish the pub was open. So on behalf of Nikon Australia and PSC and everyone here today, all the industry partners, what a fabulous, fabulous day at PSC. Thank you guys for New Dialogues in Photography. It's always a new dialogue with you guys. It's always welcome and
these
inclusive.
guys steering the show today.
Yeah,
We're getting there. Hang on. We're getting there. So to Sally, Harry and Tom, thank you for a fantastic session, New Dialogues in Photography. We just love working with you all. My boss does have a little line that goes something along the lines of, we have a no doofus policy, and when you guys approach us to partner with you, we figured it out pretty quickly that you're not doofuses. You're actually...
Well, that's really good, because I wanted to call my business nodickheadsallowed.com.
Well, I wasn't going to say
my
that
husband
word.
won't let me.
But if you replace
Am I
doofus
allowed to say
with
that? Oh, I know doofus.com.
that's probably what she said.
So it's important, It's about working with like-minded people, isn't it?
You're such a legend. So all the traits we just love. We just love everything about you guys. So if for those people that are watching at home or going to watch it back on the YouTube channel, and if you're not familiar with Australian Photography Awards or the Brown Bill Effect, I really encourage you to jump on board, check them out. They're awesome people. Thank you guys for a fabulous session.
Thank you, Julie.
Big reminder here, guys, that the entries to the Australian Photography Awards are still open until the 18th of October.
Monday.
There are
No extended deadlines ever from us. We're not joking about that.
So Tom's calling it a wrap.
Tough but fair.
18th of October, there is some fabulous prizes fabulous prizes full stop, right?
Yeah.
There's a Nikon Z5, there's heaps of mirrorless cameras, there's mentoring sessions for students with the Brown Bill Effect. Sally Brown Bill, thank you, Sally. So do check them out. They're on the Australian Photography Awards website. Now, before we close for today, I would like to ask our production team, our fabulous PSC students, to switch to camera 5, please. And no sitting in your chairs this time. Hop up, take a stand, turn around, and take a little bit of a bow.
Amazing
Well done,
work,
guys. Smoothly, apart
So
from my
good.
cough. I'm sorry.
So
about
Josh,
that.
Jane and Maddie, thank you so much. This would not have gone ahead without you. Jerry and Kat, I don't know if you're going to come out here, but thank you guys as well. That's Jerry's hand, Kat's a bit shorter. Thank you guys as well. Really fabulous day. If you enjoyed today's session, join us for day 2 tomorrow at the PSC Playground. And if you missed a session and you'd like to check it out, PSC YouTube site has all the recordings. So thank you very, very much. Oh, and Ollie Oop, I forgot you. So that's a wrap from us, everyone. I've always wanted to say that. Nudie Noot, Bandicoots.
Bye.